Yo, yo! What up? What's going on? How's everybody doing? How is everybody? Cool. Guys, let me just mess with this OBS real quick. For some reason, it's not showing my face. Usually it does like a little overlap, but this time, let me see if that works. Boom, 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 boom. I think I gotta close this thing. Hold on here one sec, just getting rid of this thing. There we go. Alright, alright, alright. How's everybody doing? What's going on? Man, good to see everybody. I'm trying to get this thing right. Let me see, just there. I don't know why it hangs out in the corner. I think that's the way to go. There we go. Alright, how's everybody doing? Let's get to work. Let's get to work. Let me know how all your trading's going. What have you guys been up to? There ain't shit going on really in the crypto markets at the moment, but it looks like we're kind of getting into the last crescendo of what should be happening. So that is really the good thing. We've just got to kind of bide our time and let these things, you know, settle the way they want. But we're starting to get, I think, into probably the most interesting part. I would think it's probably the last wave of cryptos. And so we've just got to make it happen. That's really all, you know, that's really all we can do, you know. And once that happens, we are going to be able to shred, you know. So just kind of be wary of this stuff. We're really in that really sweet spot of, I think, where the market should go. But how much lower can we go? Well, that's what we're about to find out. So let's get some charts and get this party going. Okay, you've been averaging down on that stuff, huh, Jason? I see it. I see what you're doing. So what we're starting to see here kind of is, you know, we've had a bunch of legs down here. So right after this kind of run to 11,000, you know, we went sideways and we had a leg down. And then we went sideways for a couple weeks. And then we had, you know, a leg down. And now we've had sideways for a couple weeks again. And, you know, now we have another, you know, leg down. And now we're starting to go, we only had one leg down this time, and now we're starting to go sideways, you know, again. And so there's going to be kind of a couple things that, you know, we've just got to be really mindful of, which is, you know, does this thing start to even out here and curl back higher, or does it lag down? You know, the last time that we had a rebound in the markets, you know, we went sideways for a while after a leg down, but like you started to see some attempts to pop. So this is kind of where, you know, we need to go with this, is like you'll start to see like a few attempts. Oh man, where's my face? That's really my money maker. Hold on here. Oh, there I am. All right, cool. So, boom, 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 boom. I don't know why it shows both. So what we want to really be doing is, you know, we saw like an attempt, and then it comes back down and you hold support. And then when you make an attempt again, and then it comes back down. But what that'll start to do is kind of even out this 9 EMA over here. And that's where we need to really go with this. And, you know, we need to see that kind of just that we need to start seeing those bottoming processes where, you know, the market is trying to spike, where we can kind of even out these moving averages. And then when you get that sideways movement, you know, if you can come out of the zone, it makes it really just much easier, you know, to time the trade. And then we can really kind of get, you know, a short-term bottom or something like that. We're not necessarily seeing that yet. We haven't even tested the 9, so the 9's actually coming right on top of it. But if we start to go sideways for a little bit more time, I do think that we should be able to, come out of it. But we don't know. Like, this could just be, right, another leg down. We don't necessarily know that. But what we do know is that, we've got some levels here that we're kind of holding at. So we're holding at this 6,000. The market loves this 6,000 right now. And that's something that, we've got to really watch closely. It's loving it. And so at some point, if it can kind of hold that support and squeeze above, that could be something, that could spark some short covering. Right now, if you look at, the number of shorts that are piling in, like on, if you look at the trading view stats for like the Bitfinex shorts or anything like that, you see like shorts have been piling in. At some point, if it could just squeeze the other way, we could get that short, short covering to get into it. But if we can't hold here, we have really some strong support at 5,000. 5,000 is a strong psychological level because it's the number 5, of course. And that was also 5,000. Like, we trended a lot in Bitcoin last year, but 5,000 was really the mark that sent it like parabolic. And that was a bubble. But the bubble's already burst, right? So, like, whether Bitcoin's in a bubble or not doesn't matter. This was the bubble. That bubble's been burst, right? So now we've kind of pulled back and bled out. We're all the way back, not where we started, but we've given back more than, right, it ran pretty much. And so we've only got maybe so many legs left where, maybe you get to 3,000, maybe you get to 5,000. But the one thing that you will see is there is money on the sidelines for this stuff. One of the things, if you like read the news on some of this stuff, there is, every day you're hearing somebody say, I'm launching a Bitcoin crypto fund for 300 million. I'm launching one for 400 million, right? You're like seeing like tons of things, but it doesn't look like they're putting really any money to work. But what you're starting to see is everybody is putting together like some type of trading desk, and so the world is looking at it, but people aren't putting the money to use. And so there could be a handful of things that are happening, which we'll have to be, really aware of, so like I just seen, I've just seen some news like Facebook is starting to unban crypto advertising, so that can get the public back into it right now because, right, it's not even on the public's mind right now. If you look at even for our company, like if you do like a Google search on traffic for the term Bitcoin, traffic is down 90%, right? So like in our business, like when we launched our crypto website, we were doing like 50, 60,000 unique visitors every month. So these are people that are just hearing about the good Bitcoin, going on Google, and then finding my site. That's down from like 50, 60,000 to like 10, right? Even less than that. And so that natural traffic is gone. So imagine that I'm just one website. Well, imagine that's happening all over the world, right? When that traffic dies down because people aren't even really looking for it. But what will start to happen is as this thing starts to rise, if we can start to squeeze those shorts, it starts to really pile in and you'll start to see it. One thing that will help is, I did just read that Facebook has, ended their ban. My buddy Josh, my business partner, he's the guy that types in here. He just sent this to me. Facebook reverses its ban for crypto advertising, right? So obviously Facebook is like probably the platform that most people are sitting around all day, right? Baby pictures, sending dick pics, all that kind of stuff. That's what we use Facebook for. So if we can reverse some of this type of stuff just to get the conversation going, that's going to be obviously really helpful. And then it's time for people to put really some of that money to work. And you'll like read like just, day after day, like, people putting together funds. People are putting together funds for cryptos, where they're looking at this stuff. And so we're not seeing any of the money pile in. If anything, we're just seeing the money pile out. So there's kind of a couple theories to that. But one of it is that when you develop a fund, the only way you can go from, say, 300 million to $1 billion, besides trading your way out of it, which most funds can't do, is to raise more money. The only way you can raise more money is to have a big year, right? And so most of the time, people will wait. Smart money will always wait till things kind of crash down. You know, they'll just sit there. Because what will happen is if everybody can scoop this up near lows and spike this market back up, all their funds are going to show like 200, 300% returns. And now, right, they're going to be raising more and more money. And so you're seeing it, like if you go on, you know, Crypto Panic or any news source, it's, you know, you'll see like real investors and real people, you know, building out kind of crypto funds and stuff like that. But we haven't had any opportunity for the actual, going of that stuff. So I think that's going to be just something that's really important when you think about this stuff. You know, we've got to come in and nail that part down. So that's going to be where we've got to go. And so whether that happens at 5,000, whether that happens at 3,000, we don't necessarily know, right? All we can do is just watch these levels. If 6,000 holds and we squeeze above this trend line that's been developing, good. Then that's your spot, right? And the squeeze is on it. We don't really even have any resistance till maybe 8,000, but that could start the run. And I need this thing to at least get to 7,000 because one of our guys in our chat room, Kevin Cornwell, basically said if Bitcoin hits 7,000, he'll eat his dick, in other words. And so we don't really even need that much pop, but just to see that, I think is going to be really, really exciting. One thing to really kind of look at when you're thinking about how bottoms are made is really the action, the smaller term, you know, action when you're looking at price action. So like one of the things that I always kind of look at for like even just the health of the market is like how does the market handle spikes? So like in a bull market, like when you see a spike like this, we go from 5,700 to 6,250, that's 500 points, almost 7-8%. That's pretty good, right? But what's happening is, you know, we're not digesting those spikes, going sideways, and then exploding again. So the hallmark of trend trading or the hallmark of trends is that consolidations and bases give stocks or coins power. They give it energy to explode even higher. So what happens is when you're looking at shorter term price action and you get spikes up and they go sideways, which is essentially like a big long flag, and then they just kind of dip back down, that's like awful price action, where if you can't handle any type of spike, it gets sold off. Then the short-term price action is just bearish to the point where, you know, you're not going to get any meaningful short-term bottom. So like you can see even something like this, right? This is last week. You get this like nice spike up from 6,400 to 68, but then you go sideways. Well, usually in a trending environment, in a trending stock or a trending coin, you know, that sideways movement is your buy spot. You want to always be buying in those sideways movements because you'll follow through and you start your next leg up. But instead what we're doing is, you know, we may follow up for like a hot second and then it just gets sold off, right? And so those sideways consolidations, even when they're bullish and like your moving averages are curling up under it and you have all of that type of stuff, well, that type of strategy is really meant for trend trading and more momentum trading. When you're having reverse momentum, it's much harder, right? And so you can see like you get spike up and then it just fizzles out. And you're kind of seeing that even in Ethereum, you know, quite a bit, where it's just like you get a spike that looks like it can hold and then it just goes sideways and then it fizzles out, right? And that's been happening really quite a bit. You can see up here, this thing goes from 500 to 548, and then it's looking like it's trending, and then right, all these kind of spikes and then consolidations, they're not following through. Like this one actually followed through, and we were in shock. We're like, holy shit, it actually followed through. But that's not even happening right now, where we can say wow, look at that, we've got something that's going there. We're not getting we're not getting any of that fun stuff. And so that's just something that we've got to really be mindful of, is that on a longer term basis, the trends, you see the trends a little bit later, right? Your shorter term time frames will give you clues to when the longer term is setting up, right? And so the price action on a smaller term time frame gives you the clues to what's about to happen in the beginning. And so till that kind of price action changes, we don't have necessarily anything that we can do. Otherwise, really, you're just kind of shorting all the pops. That's really the only play that's been there. And it hasn't been a crashy type of environment. It's been more of a slow bleed. So even like intraday, like when you're kind of like, okay, I'm going to short the pops. Well, you don't necessarily get that much range. The volatility that was in crypto last year, where you got like 10-20% moves every day, you don't have that volatility right now. Most days, like, you just kind of sit around in a range and you just sit there and watch paint dry, and that makes it really tricky to even really get too aggressive on the short side. Because one thing, like, I learned in trading that my mentor Paul used to say, he's been doing the swing trading YouTube lives for stocks, and one of the things that Paul always tells me is, like, you never want to short a dead market or a dead stock. Meaning, if something's just sitting around, even if it's weak, it's just sitting around, right? You're opening yourself up for a short squeeze. So at that point, like, you want to just kind of chill if it's just fizzled out and there's no volatility, because you're not going to be able to trade around freely and use your trading setups. You're kind of just, you could be shorting, and then it's like wait and see. Then, you grind along, and yeah, you'll make some money because the trend is down. But when it's that slow bleed, it makes it harder, at least if you're active trading or day trading. And so that's where you want to get, really good with that. On the other side of things, all of this stuff really looks the same right now. So if you're looking at daily charts, all you can really do is make a wish list, right? So, Ethereum, the support's at 360. Now, Bitcoin's at its old low from April, right? So, like, Ethereum really probably should get down there in the next, so many days. It probably will have a pop in the next couple, just because it seems to make a leg down, then grind higher for a couple, and then boom, you get wiped out. So, I wouldn't be surprised to have it kind of pop up into this 480s or something like that. But overall, most likely, it's going to come in and test down into these lows of 360. And the action on Ethereum has been just awful. It's been untradeable, really, because if you think about it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2 weeks ago, it was really around the same damn price, right? It was in the 450s, 460s. So it hasn't given you that much of room to really trade along, minus like 1 or 2 big spikes. And so even like on the daily chart, you often see like, well, it did move from 400 to 500, or, Bitcoin moved from, 6,200 to 6,800. Well, that's 10%. How come we weren't in that? And it's like, well, it happens in like one 15-minute candle. That's not really tradable, right? It's not really tradable. And so, even though the daily chart looks awful, when you look at the short-term price action, it looks double awful, because anytime there's a big move, it's happening in 30 minutes. All the move is in 30 minutes. So by the time you like kind of wake up out of your slumber and you check it out, you're like, oh shit, right? The move is over. And so it's impossible to really trade like that. So that's the thing that you want to be careful of, is to really keep, your capital dry. Capital preservation is huge. Like, even I have made a mistake of, I've grinded out too many small losses probably the last month. A few $100 here, a few $100 there, a few $100 there, which is really limiting your risk. because that's acceptable for my account sizes. But then what happens is, you know, you do that few $100 here or there, and you do it 10 or 15 times over the course of a month. What ends up happening? You lost $5 grand, right? And then the commissions are just awful for that. So probably you add $1,000 in commissions or more, and right, that's how you start to grind out your account. So like in your mind, you may be thinking, oh, I use stop losses. I really manage my risk. I'm doing everything right, but you know, but what'll happen is all those small losses over 3 months, they'll add up to something big. Then you count in your commissions and you end up getting really, really smoked out. And so rather than sitting there hunting, trying to find like a 1 or 2% move here or there, you know, it's sometimes better to just sit it out and wait, because all that you're going to do, most likely you'll bet 50% in this type of market, even if you're a good trader, if you're trying to trade to the long side, and you'll grind out some gains, but you'll also grind out some losses. In the end, you just kind of slowly bleed out, and you don't know, you know, you don't realize it really till it's kind of like too late. And that's what happened to me. I'm like, I've barely been trading in my crypto chat room. You know, my guys see it. Like, I'm a hyperactive, over-aggressive trader. I've been throwing like one alert every couple days. And, you know, usually they've not been that good. You know, unfortunately, some are okay and then some are not. You know, we always make sure to manage our risk. But what happens is, you know, over 2 months, we just slowly grind out. And then mentally, you're getting grind out too. As important as your trading capital is, your psychological capital is really even more important, because when that market turns, if you're mentally not rested and prepared and your psychological capital is not matching the actual capital that hopefully you have left to play the bounce, then what'll be happen is the market will start to run and you're like, I don't trust it, or you don't feel like staying up all night, and then you get to miss out on a big chunk of the run. And I'll tell you what, when the cryptos run, those, you know, first few days, you get a good chunk of the move sometimes. You know, you don't want to miss it, right? And so you've got to be mentally kind of there, prepared. But this is just like that. It's just a grinder of a market. Every single one of these coins is the same. Like, you know, it looks like, okay, it could be okay, and then it just drops down, and then it looks like it's turning, and you get like a 1-day pop, and then it comes back down, and you're like, oh, we're like consolidating some support, and then you just come back down. And that can really grind on you. No matter how good of a risk manager you are, it can cause some losses. And so, you know, when the market's volatile, we're really worried about taking the big losses. But when the market's bleeding, you got to worry about a series of smaller losses, because they end up being just a big one. And so I'm always kind of just really mindful of that. And the action sucks. I mean, there's just there's no getting around that, you know, when we think about, you know, what's been going down on this. And so we'll have to be really mindful to just manage our risk really aggressively. Otherwise, there will be nothing for us to trade when that market turns, and then we're really shit out of luck. Yeah, and there are some, you know, there's some bots and stuff like that, but you're not going to see, you know, people like to talk about whales and cryptos and stuff like that. And it's like, get the fuck out of here, crypto whales. You know, look at the size, look at the size of the crypto market, right? The market cap is $247 billion, right? You know, it's $247 billion. Well, if you look at the size of Facebook, what's its market cap? $566 billion. So the whole crypto market is not even the size of one damn company, right? It's not even the size of one damn company. You know, there's 8,000 companies in the US and hundreds of thousands in the world, right? It's not even the size of, you know, not even the size of one company. So it's just a slow bleed. There's not necessarily really any money in the markets right now at 200 billion market cap. But the good thing is, like, how low can the market cap really get? Well, okay, let's, you know, if it still gets cut in half or whatever, you're still closer to the bottom in cryptos than you are really to the top, right? If we're thinking this could be worth this is a $1 trillion market someday, awesome. Well, then, you know, we're much closer to the bottom than the top, but we've got to be able to keep our capital dry, because the one thing that you're just seeing is, you know, the hodling mentality is, you know, the hodling mentality, you know, has worked. But look, if you're 90% down, if you're 90% down when on your hodl, it's going to take a long time to make your money back, right? Like, let's see, percentage. Dun, 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 dun. So check this out. So if you have, if you have, like, say, a 50% loss, how much do you need to make to get back to even? Most people would think it's 50%, right? But it's not necessary. That's not necessarily the case. If you lose 50%, what you've got to do is make back 100% to break even. So what if you're down 90%? I mean, you'd have to have, right, so much return that you're not necessarily going to get it back. You know, you're not going to get it back for a long time. So you don't want to get to that point where you're down so much on your bags that you'll never get it back, or, you know, it'll take years to get back. You know, you have to think about that, you know, quite often. It's like, if I'm down 75%, so, like, say you bought EOS at 23 and you're down to 8, you've lost 75% of your gains. But for EOS to get back to 23, it would have to go up 300%, right? And so the math does not work in your favor. The math does not work in your favor when you're talking about, you know, hodling too hard. If you're hodling near the top, so, you know, if you're hodling, you're down 10%, you know, that's one thing. But even then, you've got to be careful. If this market has room to drop, it's got room to drop. Good, good, good. And there are some ones that I'm still watching, you know, but look, they all look the same. You know, this, if you replace this chart with EOS's 23 to 8, you know, they all look the same, right? If you look at this one at 1700 to 700, I mean, they all look fairly the same, right? I mean, not exactly the same, but, right, this thing's at 90, it's at 30, you know. This, you know, I love this Neo. Like, out of all the crypto coins, it's probably the one that, like, I always kind of have my eye on. But there's nothing you can do about it. You know, if you're hodling this thing, you know, from a wrong price, you could be in this thing for quite some time. So you got to be super careful with that. Good, good. Anybody, so our game plan is really going to be just twofold, right? Well, watch this level here. If we start to curl out of it and break this trend line, you know, we may get some juice in it, right? And we've seen this type of pattern work before, right? Where the market comes down and then goes sideways and busts loose. We've seen that pattern before. If it doesn't hold here, then, you know, we'll start to look closer to 5,000, right? And now when the market goes, I'm not going to be buying any Bitcoin. Bitcoin sucks to trade, and, you know, so on and so forth, right? When the market goes, we want to be in some of the ones that get the bigger percentage returns, because, frankly, we've got to make up for fucking lost time, right? This 2018, we were all expecting to really be shredding, right? I was expecting to buy some Lambos by now. So when Bitcoin starts to return, the last thing I do is buy Bitcoin. I want to be buying stuff that is in a multiple of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin can move 10%. I need to find the stuff that can move 20% or 30%. So, you know, a high relative return in relation to Bitcoin is going to be so important. And so we're going to keep really an eyeball on all that stuff because, well, it's important, right? It's important. We've got to make sure that we get a bigger percentage return when these things go. and mark it up. And some of the other guys, a lot of people have been asking me, well, stocks and stuff like that. I've been killing it in stocks the last month or so, but it was wild because before I was slow in stocks and I was making all my money in cryptos, and now it's been in reverse. And so I'm a big believer you've got to know both. But stocks is just easier, consistent income. If your goal is to make just like $1,000 a day or something like that, then the stock market gives you a lot of opportunities because you have you can trade off earnings and stuff like that. So make sure you're doing both. And we are doing YouTube lives on the stock market also. So you can come in and check out Paul's stuff, and some of that other stuff. I think he just did one. I think it was just yesterday. And he's my mentor. He's really good at this stuff. So you'll be able to kind of come in and shred that stuff with him. But clean up your game a little bit, and while you're studying some of this other stuff, it'll help you, with the cryptos also. So yeah, Paul had his webinar yesterday. He's really good at this stuff. So you can definitely come in and watch some of this other stuff, right? Hone your skills and make some money in a lot of different ways. Most successful people, they have a lot of different sources of income anyways, so it's not like, okay, I like crypto, so I only trade cryptos, or I like stocks, I only trade stocks. You should trade stocks, you should trade cryptos, get into, learn about real estate, learn about as many things as you want, because to be in the top 1% of any field is nearly impossible, right? How many people really make it to the NBA? Very few, right? To be the best engineer in the world, the best programmer, blah, 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 right? The people that are really successful is like if you're like a really good programmer and then you happen to be a good businessman, well, now you end up like a Bill Gates, right? You're kind of combining different things. And so while this is waiting, keep sharpening your tool set, have as many good skills as you want, and if you're in the top 10, 15% of a bunch of different things, you're going to be like this fucking shred god ninja and a lot of different things, but combined, you're like this super Ethereum lord, and that'll be very helpful with your trading. So learn a few different strategies, but in the end, we use the same stuff everywhere, right? The patterns are the same, the procedures are the same. Anybody got any questions? Anything they want to talk about? There's not much to talk about this market. I don't even think I made a trade this week. Oh, yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Good, good, good. Yeah, Neo could bottom around 30, but, Brian, it's hard to say because if, the BTC keeps dropping, then, we don't really know when this thing goes. How low does it go? The one cool thing about Neo is that the Chinese copy everything. So, if Ethereum actually ever gets any good use cases where people are using it for something other than crypto kitties, what'll happen is, the Chinese will just copy it and they'll put it on the Neo network and they'll pump the shit out of it, right? So that's the good thing about... no, I made a lot of trades in the stock market. I made a lot of trades in the stock market today. I don't even know. Let me see here. Holy shit. So in the stock market, so I traded Billy, I traded Bazoon, I traded Huya, I traded IQ. I got toasted on this IQ. I made 28.52 on this TVIX. And then I traded the Zuo for a small loss. So, yeah, you gotta, that's what I use for my daily income. And I don't trade a huge account in the stock market. You don't need too much buying power. I usually use about 50,000 buying power. So, you can get 50,000 buying power with really a $10,000 or $15,000 account. So for the most part, you can get it going with margin and stuff. But it's always one off. One's hot, the other one's not, and who knows? One day I just like to be hot in the stocks and cryptos so I can really master the universe. But it seems like every time the crypto market's hot, the stock market's dead. I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure where Bitcoin falls, But what I'd prefer rather than this slow bleed is for this thing to just fucking crash, just get it out of the way. You know, it sucked for a lot of people because, you know, people will finally... I met this guy in Tokyo that runs a fund, and he was telling me something about... I said, man, there's just so many bag holders in some of these small coins. And he's like, man, bag holders are the worst because once they're holding the bag, you get all this resistance because there's so many bag holders, or they just hold it forever so there's no fresh buyers. So I said, yeah, man, that fucking sucks. He goes, you know what we do? And he's in China, right? So there's really no rules for anything there. But, you know, he goes, you know what we do? I go, what? He goes, what we do when we know we have a bunch of bag holders is we will flush the fuck out of the coin or stock because he's in both. We'll tank it. We'll make it crash so that all the bag holders finally give up, and then you're free, right? All the bag holders are gone. They've finally given up, and then fresh buyers will come in because that volatility comes in. So it's really interesting because, you know, when you slow bleed, the bag holders don't give up. And so they're just holding, and so there's no flow of money. But like if you fucking send that market all the way down, he's right. Then at some point everybody's like, fuck this, right? I'm gonna get, even if I can walk away with $5 in my pocket, I'll take it, and then they're gone. So I think that it would suck because people lose their ass, but ideally, you know, we may have to flush this fucking market down, get rid of all the people that are holding the bags, and then take it back. Hey Jason, what's up, buddy? How are you, by the way? What kind of time frame would I need to set aside to join boot camps? Classes are Sundays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And then, of course, you know, you want to set aside some time for, you know, studying and stuff like that also. Faux show. Good, good, good. What else? What else? How's everybody doing? I know you guys got to be bored out of your minds watching this market, you know, kind of flood down. If you're holding stuff, just breathe. Times will get better. If you're waiting patiently for the market and it's just bothering you, like it is me, better days will be here also. You know, we just got to come in and bide our time, essentially. And then look, all of this shit, I mean, you'll be able to throw a dart into some of this stuff will go. But, you know, we're just not there yet. Sadly. One thing to watch out, you know, at some point, yeah, I know this ETC is supposed to get listed on Coinbase. Who knows if this thing starts to get pumped in anticipation of it. It seems to be hanging out pretty well over the last couple weeks. At least it stopped its downtrend. So this is probably, you know, one of the healthier coins out there. And then this BNB just seems to be in a channel, you know, where you can kind of buy low, sell high. These are kind of the two tradable ones at the moment. Yeah, I wish I always like, man, I wish we had something better to talk about. But we will once this market starts to go. I'm sitting on my hands too. You know, I'm sitting on my hands a lot. I'm, you know, looking at a handful of things, but boy, you know, it's like, it's hard to buy something when you know it's going to go down the next day. You know what I mean? You know, I think that's where, you know, we've always got to just be kind of careful with this thing. But, you know, I kind of every day kind of peruse through this coin market cap, and I sit there and I'm like, you know, you just make mental lists or physical lists, start thinking like, you know, at what point would I, you know, want to buy some of these, you know? At what point, there's some, you know, there's some decent coins still running around out there, but like at what point, you know, do we want to buy something, right? You know, what's your price range? What's where, you know, at what level, you know, would you be willing to pay and hold on to some of this stuff? Hey, Austin, what's up, baby? Yeah, there's still a lot of coins. The one thing is, you know, right now, it's even 1,500 coins, and most of them are junk. We're just in that weird sweet spot where some of these things got to go bankrupt. Not bankrupt because they don't do anything, but what I mean is they essentially have to They got to get low. They got to almost go to zero and allow, like, allow the real coins to stand up. But there's some interesting ones out here, you have Neo, you have Batcoin. There's a few. I love this Mana. There's a handful of these bad boys that are out there, but you just can't buy them at these prices. BNB, just can't buy them at these prices. Cool, cool, cool. Anybody else got anything to say? Speak now or forever hold your peace, my friends. All right, we'll rock and roll, guys. Then that is a wrap. Speak now or forever hold your peace. 1, 2, ta-da!